They changed the way that they set up our business page on Facebook, and so now I'm always all confused on how to share our posts.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because of that events thing?
Nick's getting older. He's wearing glasses.
It's something else.
He's confused by Facebook.
Shut the fuck up.
Is your hair receding?
Huh?
Hey, what's the matter with that?
Better not be.
I just know that would be like his worst nightmare.
It would absolutely be my worst.
No,
I would never not be wearing a hat. You want to throw shots, Mike? We'll throw.
I'm already balding. I understand that. That's already your worst fear. I'm okay with that. I accept who I am.
YouTube is live, and now we're going live to MCN6. And we'll be ready. We're rolling on video. Rolling on audio. Check your levels. Bingo.
Look you right in the eye.
Rude.
Right in the middle of your eyeball.
Still rude.
A gentleman. I don't know what you're talking about.
Test.
Who are you trying to fool?
Test.
Everybody but you. And we're in Andover colors. Check it out, Mike.
Proud of you.
All right, gents. I got to connect the chat. Hey, to anyone who might be joining us, welcome to the show. You've just found the greatest sports talk, internet, radio, television show on the planet Earth, specifically about Minnesota sports and national sports. It's really complicated.
I would argue that we are the greatest sports show in the universe, but I don't know what else is out there. Some alien might be out there predicting the future, so I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
Which is all this show really is. It's a bunch of speculation. Might get some truth out of it.
No. We're actually dealing in some hardcore facts this week with the Vikings-Packers preview, which, by the way, should I ask, here pre-show about your guys' just game experience quick?
It's great.
Or should we save it for the show?
I'm sure we'll talk about it. My vocal cords are literally still recovering.
Okay. Was it wild? The overall, mood in the building and everything? Did it feel raucous?
Oh, yeah.
It did?
It was, we got to, 114.8 on the decibel reader for inside the stadium in the fourth, and we were up by 17 points.
Oh, Jesus.
It was loud.
That's awesome.
We annoyed the shit out of every Packer fan that's ever existed.
Well, I'm very interested.
One of us more than the other. Can you take a guess? I said one of us annoyed more Packer fans than the other.
Oh, yeah, I know that answer.
Who?
We used to, it's you, Nick. And we used to, one of my friends had season tickets, and we go to the Vikings game, and we sat behind this guy that everyone referred to as the nose. And he had this gigantic growth on his nose that was, bananas when you saw it in person. But you'd think that, I don't know, maybe if you had that, you wouldn't be the biggest, loudest, meanest drunk in the whole building. But he was abusive, and it was crazy. But he made it a good game.
Yeah.
It was fun, is what I'm saying.
I sat right next to this poor kid that eventually had to switch seats with his mom because I was annoying him so much, and then they left early.
Oh, you're a monster.
Oh, yeah.
You're a monster.
He was 17 years old. He was old enough to be. He was old enough to talk his shit. He tried to out-cheer me. I obviously wasn't going to let that happen.
Right.
I would also say that this kid probably has a para with him in most classes.
Stop it. That makes me sound so terrible. That's not true.
That's very awesomely funny, though. So you got to.
So either you just insulted a regular individual.
Oh, he's a Packer fan. He wears water wings when eating soup either way.
Yes. What a way to start the show.
That's great. All right, guys, it's all yours.
All right, Mike, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Gabe, are you ready?
Yes.
There we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Glass Half Sports. It is September 15th. See, I didn't even have to ask you this time, 2022.
Just a nice long pause.
I had it written at the top of my page, so I had to read it. Welcome. We are a mess to start the show this week, so welcome to the worst, most disorganized sports show on the internet. As always, we are happy to have you with us. I am one half of your hosting duties, Nick Huffman, as always, joined by my partner in crime, and as we were just talking about, pissing off every Packer fan in the Twin Cities last Sunday, and Mike Mensing. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing well. I'm actually planning on going to the Gopher game this Saturday, so
good.
hopefully I can piss off some Colorado Buffalo fans.
There we go. We're always all about that. So yeah, 1 week into the NFL season, folks, and the landscape has already changed. So we do have a ton to cover this week. Mike, if they have friends who are football fanatics like ourselves, where should they go to follow us?
Yeah, guys, as always, you can find us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, Spotify, YouTube, and Patreon. We do have a Twitch.
We do have Twitch. Nothing on there right now.
Nothing on there, but you can find us there. And then post-show, you can always find us on MCN6. That's cable in the Twin Cities area. You can also access that through your Roku remote.
I'm pretty sure Roku's like an anywhere thing, right?
Yes.
So like Florida, Colorado, Texas, California, pretty much anywhere. No matter how far you get from Minnesota, you can watch our show, right?
I do have a sneaking suspicion that for some reason Florida doesn't have Roku, but everywhere else should, yeah.
What's your grudge against Florida? Is there something implied there?
Florida man, I don't know.
Too busy wrestling alligators and tossing them through McDonald's drive-through windows or what?
Yeah, something like that.
All right, yeah, that's fair. What do we got for the folks today, Mike?
Yeah, it's a big show. We are a football-centric show. So once we get into the football season,
all the other sports die.
Yeah, that's our focus. So we are going to check in on the Minnesota Twins quickly before we get into it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll talk about the Vikings opener. We'll talk about a Vikings preview for week 2, Monday Night Football. We have a segment that we're going to call Overreactions this week. I'm going to give Nick a few over or under reactions, and he's going to have to kind of gauge where they're at.
Sure.
After week 1, Nick has his top 10 power rankings.
Yep. We are going to be that sports show this year.
Yep. And then we have our weekend football preview. If we have time, I have a couple things I want to touch base with you on at the end.
Sure.
So with that, let's kick off Minnesota Twins check-in.
Can you pause real quick, though? I do have a small shout-out that I would like to make. I would like to, there we go, Gabe. A happy belated birthday to one of the most important individuals in my life. A great role model of mine as I grew up had his 75th birthday yesterday, and my papa or grandfather, John Andreessen. So happy belated birthday, Papa. Love you. Hope you had a good day yesterday, and hope you're enjoying the shit out of today. Just wanted to give the man his respect and his due.
Happy birthday.
There we go. All right, so now Minnesota Twins.
Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the Minnesota Twins going into the wraparound series with Cleveland?
Would you like to hear I told you this already, but would you like me to break apart my Minnesota Twins experience from over the weekend?
Sure.
So the most Minnesota Twins Rocco Baldelli thing happened to me over the weekend. I was nice enough to be invited out to the Twins game with some family members of mine. So we go out and we sit in the bleacher seats out in the outfield, and I'm enjoying the first couple of innings, having some conversation, and all of a sudden I pick my head up and I realize Chris Archer, who started the game, is no longer in the game. Mike, could you take a wild guess at what inning that would have been in?
Wasn't it the second inning?
Yeah, I think it was 2 2/3 innings into the game with us down by 1 run, and Chris Archer only having walked 1 batter, was pulled from the game for Cole Sands, who then proceeded to let up an additional 5 runs, walking 2 of them in. And I was just sitting in the outfield going, this is the exact thing that me and Mike talked about all season long. It is the inability for our management to make good decisions in the middle of a playoff race. Were they eliminated before the weekend? Absolutely not. Should Chris Archer have stayed in that game? Absolutely, they should have. I said on this show last week, and I said our pitching staff is going to always give up 6 runs with the way that it's handled. Twins wound up losing this game 4-6.
Yep, and then they lost Sunday as well, 4-1. We are beating up on the Royals, the lowly Royals. We finished up a 3-game series with them today, and then it gets into the nitty-gritty. A wraparound Friday through Monday series with a doubleheader on Saturday against the AL Central leading Cleveland Guardians.
Yeah, the issue is that it's on the road. You would have liked to have taken most of the games at home if you thought you were still going to be in it, right? And they're very evidently not going to be in it here.
Instead,
the season is over.
Got swept at
home. The season is over. OVER, done. Finito,
we are 5
dead.
Games back right now.
There's no way that they make that up.
21 games left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think it's over. And in my opinion, after watching this team and seeing specific things, right? Like Joe Ryan has started to show ace-ish type flashes, right? His performance the other night in that 7-inning no-hit bid, very impressive. Sonny Gray looks like he has rounded into form towards the end of the season. You want to play your best baseball at the this point in the season in case you are going to go on a playoff run. Carlos Correa, the same way, has turned into a much more efficient hitter at the plate during this point in the season. Jose Miranda has continued to stay hot. The only issue is we're riddled with injuries and we have bad leadership. So the Minnesota Twins in 2022, to me, sound like the Minnesota Vikings in 2021. This is a roster that might be able to compete, but it's going to take us making some additional changes or tweaks to the roster with new management, and we could probably come back next year and make a run in the playoffs. That would be my assumption or my assessment at this point.
I'm not going to fully give up on them just yet.
Dead.
I'm a Minnesota sports fan, so unless I'm dead, I'm pretty much rooting on my teams. Question for you. Thoughts on Joe Ryan being pulled after 7 in the no-no bid?
Once again, not happy. Why would you? That's regardless of what you think about metrics, that's one of those situations where not only is that like a bid for history for that guy, he has given you zero signs as to a reason to pull him. They haven't been able to touch him all night. And you wind up pulling it. Why? If that backfires and the Twins bullpen does a Twins bullpen thing in that game, that's something that, as a starting pitcher, I would let sit in my gut forever. I would never again have full faith in Rocco Baldelli.
Are you more, just to play devil's advocate here, are you more likely to injure your throwing elbow or shoulder on the 110th pitch or the 10th pitch of a start?
110th. Well, no, I would disagree. Actually, I would disagree there too, because you're probably looser.
Okay, so the 210th pitch then?
Yeah, probably.
Okay, you see the logic here.
Yeah, there is a line in the sand to draw. His bullpen
more
sessions
liable to be injured after 100 pitches.
I can promise
7,
you
he had 106.
I can promise you that his bullpen sessions cumulatively throughout the week or whatever are going to total more than 109 pitches. Not to mention, the roster's also just expanded. We are in September. If he then needs an additional day, give him an additional day.
I'm just saying you're in a playoff race, in theory, and to risk what you just called as basically your ace of your rotation after 106 pitches through 7, when he's 23 years old, I see the logic there.
I definitely see the logic. I'm not disagreeing with you there. I understand the decision, right? I still don't think it's the right one to make.
Alrighty, well that's kind of how we felt about the Twins all season long.
Can I pop in with just one little positive here?
Yeah.
This is something that I'm excited about. You guys don't even talk about. Luis Ariz, he's the American League batting king right now. He actually passed Bogarts last night, so this is 2 nights ago. So he's at 320. He came out with a hamstring. So I'm calling the institution of an old Wrigley Field thing, the Sean-O-meter. We need the Luis-O-meter to start showing up in the outfield.
The Luis-O-meter.
And have the fans start getting behind it, because it's really incredible. And then here I even got this one. Watch this. Whoop, that's my Andre Dawson card I got.
Look at his strikeout numbers compared to everybody else. What an efficient guy.
He really, he is a special player.
He really is.
And look at his WAR.
3.9.
That's not nothing, for a guy who hits almost no home runs and,
for a utility player, right. That's really good.
It's really good. I mean, he really is, and I think it's worth kind of whatever, getting excited about that.
Credit where it's due, but he's doing it on a team that stands no shot to make any sort of noise.
It's a lot like getting really excited for Kirill Kaprizov for the Wild to get knocked out in the first round. All right, moving on. Let us know what you think about the Minnesota Twins and their chances moving forward. And with that, a little bit more optimistic view. We have a Minnesota sports team that is just starting out their season. So right now, we're optimistic. Minnesota Vikings kickoff. They played the Packers on Sunday, 3:25. We just so happened to be there. Let's talk through that game, Nick. What were your initial thoughts?
Should we apologize to any of the Packers fans, or...
No, okay. I mean, they decided to wear green in Minnesota, so that's their fault.
Yeah, we scored immediately, and the first thing that flew out of my mouth was "Welcome to enemy territory." So it's
my favorite line that I said all day was that if you're wearing green, it's going to be a long day. And then the lady right in front of us wearing green turned around, and I said, "Long day."
Long day,
long day.
Gabe, you're actually probably glad that you didn't come with us to this game. You would have been ashamed at our actions probably throughout most of it, if I'm being quite honest with you.
I mean, honestly, I've been hearing stories about how you shouldn't wear Vikings gear if you're going to the game this week in Philly, though. So
whatever.
It's a little bit different environment elsewhere.
Absolutely different.
Can I say, sorry, just one last thing, because you guys are talking about being obnoxious with fans.
Yeah.
My favorite iteration of this is one of my best friends in comedy, Isaac Whitty. Went to the Twins game, and remember when they were doing Circle Us Bert?
Yeah.
They still do it. They made a big sign that said Circle Us Bart, and they put it up. It just, obviously they know his name, but all the fans around would be like, "It's Bert! It's Bert!" And it just started like a big riot. It was awesome.
That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it was super funny.
Yeah.
Anyway.
No, go ahead. Were you done?
Yeah. That's all. I just needed to say that, apparently.
No, I think stuff like that is hysterical. I think that's like the signs you see at like WWE and AEW events. I think those are so funny.
College Game Day has them beat.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, the Vikings and Packers, I want to get your in it. You're more of the X's and O's guy, right? What did the X's and O's, what, off of the game were some positives for you? What were some negatives?
I really liked how the offense was run. I'm going to focus more on the first half because you basically saw us turtle a little bit in the second half.
Yep.
Waste clock.
Yep.
Kind of just make sure that we got out of there with the win.
Yep.
I don't disagree with completely, but when you're playing 12, maybe should have been a little bit more aggressive.
Maybe.
I saw a lot of window dressing, a lot of motions, a lot of double motions. When you're playing against a team that has to bump or slide or run with, that allows Kirk to know what defense they're in. Mm-hmm. A lot of inside zone with boot action off of it away. And then if you're giving him what defense they're in, he's basically turning around on the boot and knowing where he's throwing the football.
Yeah.
I also saw Justin Jefferson line up in a multiple variations of spots. He lined up in the backfield. He lined up in slot. He lined up on the outside. He motioned from slot to outside on the other side. That's all basically giving Kirk what they're doing defensively to try to slow them down. It also opens up JJ with mismatches. Their first touchdown, I thought, was a great play call. They motioned Thielen from left to right.
3 times on that drive.
He pauses for a second. They motion JJ as well. They get mixed up on the last switch across the line, and JJ is wide open. So
yeah.
It's going to be a fun offense to watch throughout the year, and I do think it lends to JJ's skill set.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can see here that they're bumping over, and they just get lost, and there's no one to bump over.
Yeah, I think there were plenty of questions answered, right, from the offseason in that first game. Now, is it all the questions? Can you punch their ticket to the Super Bowl? No. But here's what I'm going to tell you. Like Gabe asked us a few different times throughout the offseason, hey, what is the Vikings offense truly going to look like? What is it going to be under Kevin O'Connell? And the only thing that I can come up with is it will forever be a fluid build forward off of what we saw in week 1, right? There's window dressing that the Eagles will now try to prepare for in week 1, and they'll go out and they'll run that window dressing on the first play, and KOC will probably have 2 or 3 different routes that they can go after that, right? There's variations of all of this that will allow the offense to dictate, and the Minnesota Vikings offense hasn't been the dictating factor in any game really outside of the run game in the last 4 years, right? Would you agree with that? Yeah. So you get the chance to Adam Thielen said it in his post-game interview. We're attacking and attacking and attacking and attacking, and it's not something that they've done before. Kirk impressed me a little bit. Even in some of the moments where he had pressure, he didn't fold up. The one where he stepped up, straight through the pocket, on the move, delivered an absolute strike to JJ down the field.
He seemed a lot less robotic.
Yes, he seemed a lot more confident. And I think that comes from having a guy, behind him that believes in him. For those of you that don't know, the offense that is being run here was kind of built for Kirk, with Sean McVay in Shanahan and that staff in Washington, and it's moved other places. And then Kevin O'Connell adopted it, and now he's getting to bring, what would be like the perfected version of it back to Minnesota. So this, all good things on offense. I will say this, though, the defense is what surprised me most, right? The defense has been the Achilles heel of the team more than anything over the last 2 seasons. And I think the Vikings wound up with what I called the most slept-on defensive upgrades in the league, schematically and from a player standpoint throughout the offseason. We had Aaron Kendricks. We added Jordan Hicks. We had Danielle Hunter. We added Za'Darius. Pat P returns. Cam Dantzler gets a second shot. I think Chandon Sullivan was an underrated signing as well. Harrison Phillips coming in to fill, things like that out. And there's still, talk about a guy like Ndamukong Suh and stuff coming in to continue to solidify that defensive front. And they played physical. The last time I saw the Vikings flying around like that was, prime Everson Griffin, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they brought the juice guy back. Zadarius Smith is going to be the juice guy in the defense for this season and hopefully seasons to come, with the energy, the attitude, the loudmouth, guy that's out there. So I was incredibly impressed by the defense. Anything from that side of the ball that you saw that you'd like to improve? I know obviously there's still some questions at corner.
I'm very curious to see what they do against a starting offensive line in the NFL.
Okay, yeah, Bakhtiari and say the name.
Go ahead. No, I want to hear you say it.
Elton?
I taught you.
Elton?
Nope. There's a G in there.
Elgton Jenkins. Obviously, both didn't start, but you'd like to see here. And here's what I'll kind of push back on that. I know that's like your.
They did what they were supposed to do, so I'm not gonna
4 sacks.
Yeah,
plenty of pressure.
What you should do against an offensive line that's missing both of their tackles. So what do you do against a good offensive line that ran for 250 yards?
Right.
Well,
exactly.
Let's talk about that.
Hey guys, just real quick before you get into that, I'm curious if you guys caught any of the broadcast after the game or anything, or if you listened during while you're doing it. But the announcers were really kind of hyping up O'Connell's backfield shifts and the different looks and formations. A lot, I know Mike kind of addressed that, but they really gave a really glowing account, made it sound like he's just got, that the Packers don't have a clue what's coming and that he's overwhelming them, and really made him sound like he's an offensive genius, kind of. It was very glowing. Do you see it that way?
Part of me does, because if you look at, when me and Mike were watching the game on some of the big plays that JJ hit, their safeties just looked lost. They lost. Justin Jefferson is a top 3 wide receiver in the NFL. That would be his floor at this point, if you ask me, right? And safeties and corners were turning around going, where is he? Because there was so much going on pre-snap. I was incredibly impressed, yes. Mike might have a different opinion.
Week 1, I was impressed, but can it be repeated in week 10 when teams have film?
Yeah.
Do we potentially have a top 3 offensive coach in the league?
Yes. I believe so.
He's coached.
Listen.
And called plays in one game.
Totally understand.
One.
Totally understand. But here's what I'll say. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but you got Andy Reid in the league still. I didn't watch the Giants game, so I can't comment on Dable, but I think he's a great.
But you could also Dable week 1 then, if you're going to make that argument.
I'm sorry?
I said you could also say, Brian Dable first week.
He called plays in Buffalo.
Okay, I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Don't come at me.
I will if I want to.
He's ready today. He's ready.
I'm just saying he did what he was supposed to do.
Yeah.
Just like the defense. So can he repeat it? Can he sustain it in week 12, week 14 when teams have film?
Yeah, and I will say this, and me and Mike talked about this, that, obviously the Rams played on Thursday.
They did.
And their offense looked like it may have been missing something against Buffalo. Now, credit to...
I think they were missing Stafford's elbow.
I would...
Nick.
Now, there's a lot of turnover, right? No OBJ. You lose Wes Phillips. You lose Kevin O'Connell, obviously, but they lose Andrew Whitworth. But most of the pieces are still in place, and they added Allen Robinson. Why is it that missing the guy or the 2, I guess, gurus or 2 minds that sat in that offensive room with Sean McVay last year, that they looked so bad and the Vikings looked so much better? Right? There is
I think
an
KOC
argument to
is
be
better than Kubiak.
Yeah. I thought you were about to say better than Sean McVay, and I was going to punch you in the nose, but...
Why? He's a top 3 play caller in the NFL.
No, but I guess where there's smoke, sometimes there's fire. It's something to pay attention to. Now, if the Rams come out again this week and they struggle and the Vikings look good...
then it's the start of what we call a trend.
Exactly. But I do want to say this before we move on. Did you catch the post-game stuff with the Minnesota Vikings? The giving out of the game balls, some of the post-game interviews. So more than any, and I know this, and this is kind of why I haven't cooled on the victory itself, right? Because I think the biggest thing, and I mentioned this with the Twins or the Minnesota Vikings, was the culture shift. And being able, after the game, to see, Kevin O'Connell gave a game ball to every player and coach. Okay, that's kind of cliche. He winds up giving one to Justin Jefferson, obviously breaking records, but then Kirk pretty much hands a game ball to Kwesi and KOC and gives kind of like an empowered speech. And about, halfway through it, they're talking about speed of leader, speed of the team. He goes, we'll go as far as they'll take us. And a couple of guys in the locker room were like, all the way. And everybody immediately lit up. The culture inside the locker room, what I'm seeing out of the things not on the football field for the Minnesota Vikings, I believe is what is going to lead to more success than what we have seen on the field at this point, right? I think it's a closer-knit unit. Everybody's playing for each other. I think everybody is bought in, something that we haven't had in years past, and that is what is most encouraging.
It's easy to love each other when you beat your biggest rival at home week one.
Absolutely.
What happens when you lose by 3 scores? That's my question.
Speed of leader, speed of the team.
Do they stay together? That's my question. So let's look at our week 2 matchup. We travel to Philadelphia, Monday Night Football, 7:30 Central Time kickoff. What are we looking forward to with the Vikings-Eagles?
Getting more questions answered, if I'm being quite honest. I really do want to see from the defensive side of the ball. I know me and you talked about it with Jordan Hicks. I know he had 14 tackles, obviously had a very good day against the Packers, but they're kind of limited on offense right now. And you worry about his eye discipline. I think we're going to see a lot of RPO against a quality offensive line, and they seem to have some things figured out.
18 tackles.
Right. I think they're still, and the Philadelphia Eagles have some things figured out. So I want to see what the discipline of the defense looks like when, right now, I know it's weird to think about, a strength of the Philadelphia Eagles is where a weakness of the Minnesota Vikings defense is, and that is perimeter weapons. A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, different things like that when we're not particularly deep or fast or big at corner. So I think we'll get a good answer on, and if our defensive front, by the way, with all of these meat eaters that we picked up, can stop a run-heavy team like the Eagles as well. Now, on offense, what does Kirk look like in prime time now that he is insulated? We'll get to see, does that confidence then correlate to big, better big game performances or primetime performances from Kirk? And is this offensive line real? Because the Vikings have always struggled with size in the center of the defensive front. And you're going to get Jordan Davis and Fletcher Cox this week. So you're going to get to see what the Vikings offensive line is really made out of. And if they can hold up, I think it'll be an easy win.
I will say Derek Barnett is out.
Okay.
Who's their rotational DN for them too. Going with their RPO offense, I think an advantage of our new defensive scheme is that we can try to confuse Jalen Hurts pre-snap.
Yep.
And if you confuse who the read guy is on an RPO, it becomes very difficult to run that RPO post-snap. So I think that's one way to limit the throws to A.J. Brown and to Devontae Smith. On the outside, hopefully, we do have 2 pretty decent safeties, in my opinion. One is an all-pro that's getting a little bit older, and one is a guy who just beat out a first-round pick and basically said, no, this is my spot. So they're going to
I can't bind them.
They're going to have to come up large in the over-top coverage of those 2 receivers. I think it's going to be a good game. I'm going to say Vikes by 10.
You know what? I have Vikes by 10 on the road as well. And I think it's a comfortable 10. I think it's like we have the ball on the 40 and we're taking a knee on the Eagles logo.
Yeah.
By 10. And hey, listen, the Eagles are a good team. We talked about it in the preseason. There's no reason why they shouldn't win 11 or so games. Right? I think when we broke it down, that's kind of what we came to.
His name is Jalen Hurts.
Okay, listen, but they also just put up 35 points last week. Like they have the ability.
The Lions.
They have the ability
the
to.
Overreaction of the Philadelphia Eagles needs to stop. You're a 10-7 team in the dumpster fire NFC East. You're not a Super Bowl contender. You caused this.
Another big game for JJ. Yes or no?
Yeah, of course.
How big? Does he keep pace?
130 and a tug.
130 and a tug. Are we going to start to see them spread load to other weapons in the offense?
It's not necessarily that they are going to decide to spread load. It's that the defenses that they're given are going to open Adam Thielen as well. Adam will have 80 and a tug.
I have KJ with like 40 and a tug as well.
I'm still not sold on KJ Osborne.
What's wrong with you? Guy won us a game last year.
You said the Eagles were going to win 11 games. What's wrong with you?
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
What's a tug?
Touchdown.
It's a touchdown. You need to update
Gabe,
your.
just stay away from it. Just don't even. Not even with the 10-foot pole.
Why is that? I don't know.
It just is.
We'll talk after this.
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So let us know what you think about the Vikings and Eagles matchup on Monday night. And with that, we'll go into our new segment for the year, kind of.
Yeah, we'll rotate through a couple of different segments here during the NFL season.
So this is sports news overreactions. We're going to focus on NFL Week 1. So my first one for you is a two-parter.
Okay.
Okay, so is this an overreaction or not is the game that we're playing.
Yep.
Vikings will win NFC North / Packers miss playoffs.
There's no part of me that thinks that's an overreaction.
Either one.
I think the Packers, from what I saw out of the Packers on Sunday, they have a legitimate problem. I think
Number 12.
it's 12, and his attitude has really, it was bad. Like, when you have kids at the wide receiver, and I'm going to steal Colin Cowherd's take here, but when you have kids at the wide receiver position, you have to.
Sammy Watkins and Randall Cobb would.
Well, I get it, but the two guys that you're going to have to rely on when they take away your veterans on third down are going to be your youth, and so you have to know they're going to make mistakes. You're going to know that for both of them that did not play like high-level D1 football in massive spots in front of huge crowds, that crowd noise and all the things that come with being an NFL wide receiver attached to a very complex offense run by a Hall of Fame quarterback, that they're going to make mistakes early. And he was not patient with them at all. At all. He had open receivers, or he had times where he could have thrown to, Christian Watkins or whatever that kid's name is?
Christian Watson, who dropped the touchdown to start the game.
Exactly. He dropped that touchdown to start the game, and then Aaron didn't even look his direction for 3 quarters. You know what you have to do there, and that you would agree with this as a quarterback? You probably got to go right back to that guy and keep him involved.
Yes and no. I mean, you just got to, one thing I don't think Aaron does is just buys into the system and throws it to the open guy.
Yeah.
I think he forces it at times.
100%.
Sometimes he holds on to the ball too long. I think that was part of our 4 sacks on Sunday.
Yeah, I also don't know, are they ever going to get Bakhtiari back? That's the other question. This is a repetitive issue that has now held him out for almost a year with his knee, where they've told us time and time again that he'll be back. So without him, what does that offensive line truly look like? How much can you really get out of Aaron Jones? That defense, they took a beating against the Vikings offense. So they're going to be shaky going into week 2 now. They're in trouble. I think it's the end of an era for the Green. It's the beginning of the end of a 30-year era of success for the Green Bay Packers.
All right.
As far as the Vikings go, what was your overreaction there?
Win the NFC North.
Yeah, I think there's not. And if that happens to the Packers, it's not close. The Bears and the Lions are nowhere near where they need to be. I think the Vikings could walk into a division title this year without much difficulty.
All right. Well, let us know what you think. Maybe take off your purple tinted glasses before you make a comment.
These are clear lenses.
And we'll move on into our second overreaction. Seahawks win more games than the Broncos this year.
We're going to talk about this when we get to the power ranking section, so stick around, and that's a teaser. But I find that hard. The Broncos do, I think, have a little bit of a problem, but I don't think it's a big enough of a problem to where they're going to fall below Seattle.
Now, here's the kicker.
Okay.
The AFC West versus the NFC West.
Correct. I tell you what, they're both going to finish in last place in their respective divisions.
All righty.
That's who finishes below Seattle.
So technically an overreaction then.
Yeah. I would say
they're
that.
not in last place right now. The Cardinals got walloped.
Yeah, they did. And Tennessee lost to New York. Week 1's weird, all right? We're going to settle into the NFL season okay. Everybody just kind of goose fraba a little bit. Right?
Well, why don't you goose fraba on the hometown team a little
Absolutely
bit?
not.
That's what I thought. All right, and the third overreaction and the last one for today, I think you're going to like this one. The Carolina Panthers finish last in the NFC South.
Oh, yeah, not an overreaction.
Worse than the Falcons.
Worse than the Falcons.
Wow.
Really? Listen, we talked about this, and I think I finally gained some ground with you when we talked about this. outside of the show the other week.
Yeah, but then he went off for 2 touchdowns after that. So
You're right. Baker threw 2 touchdowns, and he looked great in the fourth quarter. Outside of the fourth quarter, he looked absolutely atrocious. Good timing. He's not. Baker Mayfield, to me, will be a serviceable quarterback for teams that need one, but will never be the guy that leads the locker room. His attitude and his decision-making is what will always lead guys to kind of look at him like, really? Like, come on, dude. It's a track record at this point. Yes, I do. Why do you think I'm saying it? Like, you can't trust a guy at the quarterback position that is not adult enough to put his personal shit aside for the sake of the team. And Baker does not have the ability to do that.
Fair enough. So those were the overreactions for week 1.
Absolutely. We will rotate through that segment, obviously, throughout time here. You can always send in overreactions to the show, and maybe Mike will read one of yours off. The comment section is live.
Maybe.
Absolutely.
So with that, let's kick off into your power rankings, Nick. So first and foremost, we're going to go teams 10 through 6.
Yeah.
I'm going to limit you to about 30 seconds per team only.
Well, are you telling me I'm long-winded here? Or?
I'm telling you need to shut the fuck up sometimes. So 30 seconds per team as you explain where they're at.
All right, Gabe, yep, there we go. All right, so 10
through 8.
10 through 8.
Perfect.
Yeah. So number 10 is going to be the San Francisco 49ers. I think that the Trey Lance
loss to the
Chicago Bears. Yeah. And what I saw in that loss to the Chicago Bears that leads me to some concern, right? Now, that team outside of Trey Lance is a Super Bowl contending roster.
Even with Elijah Mitchell going down?
Sure. They've done it with a multitude of running backs in the past, right? That everybody that has ever been in a Shanahan offense as a running back has seen success. My issue was what I saw out of Trey Lance, and I don't know if he loses another ball game like that, if he makes more mistakes, how long Shanahan, a guy that knows he can win with Jimmy G, and a fan base that knows that they can win with Jimmy G, will be able to sit on, yeah, we're just banking on, Trey Lance to get it done. I don't know how long that is, and because of that, we've seen it in 100 different scenarios. When you have 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks, and that could lead to a very, very, very bad season for the 49ers. Only team I've ever seen pull it off was Flacco and Lamar. Because the rest of the roster is still good enough.
All right. I'll move on to 9.
Okay. Number 9 is going to be the Denver Broncos, and we need
2-0-1 teams to start your top 10.
Bold
move.
Bold
move.
Yeah, well, I would have had both of these teams ranked much higher prior to this week.
Okay.
I think the Denver Broncos have an issue at head coach. The end of that game was chaotic, disjointed. It was unorganized. Pick any term that you want. Let me ask you, when Nathaniel Hackett had Aaron Rodgers the last 2 years in big spots in the playoffs, how did that offense look?
Yeah.
Anemic?
Sure.
How did they look in that last drive in Seattle with Russ, who knows where all the bones are buried in that Seattle defense?
Not great.
I think Nathaniel Hackett is a legitimate problem. I said that when they hired him.
And if they would have hit the 64-yarder?
Okay, it has been 8 years since McManus, right? That's the kicker, had made a field goal over 57 yards. Oh. So 8 years after he hit an inside
65 yards in pregame.
That's pregame. That's not NFL speed. If
he hits it, Broncos win. He's a genius.
Yeah, but my other issue is then you got to kind of take into context the post game of this. Not only to mention, like, you have Russ in that situation against his old team. You absolutely go for it on 4th down.
Alrighty.
Right? So
the Broncos have a head coach problem. Niners have a quarterback problem. What's the problem with the Ravens at 8?
I don't think there is a problem. I think some people slept on them. I know the contract dispute obviously was a big storyline all offseason with Lamar, but that defense surprised me a little bit. The way that their safeties play was good. Patrick Queen and that linebacking core is still young and improving. I think some of their pass rushers up front are getting better on defense. And they seemingly opened up the offense a little bit in week 1 against the Jets. Now, we've seen that from Lamar in the past, and is it something that the offensive coordinator will be willing to sustain? That's a great question. But if you're going to open that offense up for Lamar, and he hasn't even started running yet, and you start to spread the field, you're talking about an MVP candidate. So I got the Ravens at 8.
Alrighty. And for our next segment, Gabe, whenever you're ready,
It'll be
reveal the
6 and
next
7,
few.
I believe.
Or 2.
Dun, 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 dun. Poof. There we go. All right.
So number 7, the Cincinnati Bengals.
There you go, Gabe.
Another team that took a loss.
Yeah. Joe looked
you
like
have 3 teams
these are
from 7 to 10 that all took a loss.
You're right. It's the strength of the rosters, right? We're going to do this in week 1, and then I will readdress this in a couple of weeks, and we'll see where these teams stand. If they continue to falter, whatever. But you got a good showing out of Joe Burrow in the fourth quarter to set up the opportunities for them to go ahead and win this football game. The Steelers, might I add, also were benefiting from not having any idea what that offense was going to look like with Mitch Trubisky running the show. So the Bengals didn't have a whole lot to go off of. Their defense is not their strength to begin with. It's the way that offense runs. Also, you're going to see them patch some things up on the offensive line. They did add some pieces, and Joe was out during a significant portion of training camp. So there's a little bit of gelling that still needs to happen there. And because the game was close, I'm not too terribly concerned. I got the Bengals at 7. Number 6, the LA Chargers. I can already see the Khalil Mack trade paying dividends. Whether that comes in the form of freeing up Joey Bosa or creating a level of pressure that's going to allow Derwin James to shine on the back end of that defense. My only worry here, I would have had them much higher after their performance. Or not much higher, but higher on the list. I don't know how much higher you can get in a top 10. Well, my question is consistency at the wide receiver position. With Keenan Allen being a little bit older and hurt, and Mike Williams seeming to either be an 8-catch, 162 touchdowns guy or a 1 target for 3 yards on 1 catch kind of guy, they do need to iron some of that stuff out on the offensive decision, and I would still like to see them prove that the Chargers won't charger and just do really dumb things in big spots to lose football games before I move them into the top 5.
All righty. So as we are entering in the top 5 here, just make sure to let us know what you think about spots 6 through 10.
Yee.
Gabe, whenever you're ready.
Bingo. All right. Los Angeles Rams at number 5.
Another team that took a loss.
Yep. But they've got all the star power. They are the defending champs, and they have Sean McVay. So I am going to give them some credit. Now, the worry that I have is their linebacking core, outside of Bobby Wagner, is not ideally deep or talented. And I think minus Andrew Whitworth, that offensive line is bordering on embarrassing. They've got talent up there, but without their inability to run the football, I think you're going to see them have very similar issues that the Buffalo Bills had in years past before the offensive line got really good without a run game, where you're just going to have to line up and sling it 60 times a game and hope the other team has bad pass coverage. And then that the defense will eventually be able to figure it out. They have enough talent on that side of the ball with Jalen Ramsey and Aaron Donald and Bobby Wagner and some of the other pieces to create turnovers. But that's the way they're going to have to play to win this year, because they're not going to be able to milk the clock. And Stafford is going to be under duress. It's going to feel more like Detroit this year than it did last year in LA for him.
All righty. And to number 4?
Minnesota Vikings. Name a unit outside, or a position, or I guess position group outside of center and cornerback where the Minnesota Vikings aren't arguably a top 10 team in the league, a top 10 unit or position in the league.
Into it.
They're a deep team. They got a ton of media love. They're
a talented team. I don't know if I'd go as far as to say they're a deep team.
I like the depth on their defensive front. I like the depth at unproven depth at linebacker. Okay, you're right. Deep may be an overstatement, but when healthy, while healthy, this is an incredibly good team. I think Kevin O'Connell building confidence into Kirk Cousins, and the fact that we didn't even really see them utilize Dalvin Cook to the greatest of his abilities in the way that we still beat the Packers last week should be very telling. We're going to get another big answer against Philadelphia this week, and they might find themselves in front of the Bucs next week. Who knows?
Alrighty. And to number 3?
Number 3 is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because even with all of the issues that they have on the offensive line right now, they've got Tom Brady, and Julio Jones is drinking out of the Guerrero fountain of youth. He looked fantastic
as well
against the Cowboys, like old school Julio.
Yep.
Now, is he going to catch 114 balls for 1,500 yards? Probably not. But could he? Godwin goes down, he's the number 2 option now.
What I liked about that, too, is the use of him in jet sweeps.
Yeah.
Actually just giving him the ball and seeing what can happen. So,
And that relationship is only going to develop as Tom learns to trust him more, and they learn each other as the season goes on. I think Tom is locked in, and that defense, Vita Vea lining up next to Hicks is a joke, especially when Devin White and
Levante David
are lined up right behind him. That defense is going to keep it close enough in every game this year for that offense, minus the offensive line, positions that they're missing, to be really competitive.
They were the only defense in the NFL this week that did not allow a touchdown.
They were good.
With that, let's look at, do you have it go 2 and then 1?
Nah,
or
it's
are
both
they
of them.
together?
They're
All right,
together.
so let's look at the top 2 teams in the NFL.
Why did we doubt Andy Reid?
Timed it perfect. Goddamn.
I didn't doubt Andy Reid.
There were a lot of media critics out there that doubted Andy Reid. Oh, they got rid of Tyreek Hill. Travis Kelce's a year older. What's the offense going to look like without a deep threat?
The same.
It's going to look like Patrick Mahomes using every weapon that he has. They looked phenomenal.
44-21 over the Cardinals.
They had 66 offensive plays. 33 of them went for more than 10 yards. That's 50% of the time that they lined up, they were going to get 10 yards from you. That's a tough offense to face. And if they're going to dictate like that on offense, go ahead, cut that pass rush loose. Chris Jones and Karlaftis and Dunlap, kind of like what we talked about. They're going to get to play their style of football, which will limit the loss of Tyrann Mathieu from last year.
It's Tyreek Hill.
That's right.
And number 1, the best team in the NFL after week 1?
The Buffalo Bills. Nobody circles the wagons like the Buffalo Bills.
All right. Do you want to jump off a ladder and break the table?
I'll jump through this table. But yeah, they're easily the best team in football right now. They did what they did to the Los Angeles Rams, minus their top corner. They played 2 rookies. Jordan Poyer is on his way back. Did he play? One of their safeties was out for a significant part of camp. He came in and looked great. Ed Oliver looked like he took a step. James Cook, minus that fumble, did not look awful.
Fumble on his very first NFL carry.
Yeah, well, that'll only motivate him to be better.
Or collapse him.
Yeah. The offensive line looked good, and what impressed me most is they did it without Josh Allen having to be Superman.
Maybe not Superman. Michael Jordan Space Jam, yes.
I'm just saying, he had a quick delivery. They've developed a quick game that they didn't have previous, right? So,
sure.
and because of that, it used to be they'd wait for the long stuff, and if it wasn't there, he'd have to run and put his body at risk. He didn't have to do that against an Aaron Donald-led defense where there's pretty normally a lot of pressure there. Talked about it in the preseason, man. Super Bowl favorites was not a undersell of Buffalo at all.
Sure. So that is Nick's NFL Power Rankings after week 1. Please let us know what you think, and if we missed your team, tell us why.
Anybody you think should be on this list that isn't on this list, Mike?
As much as I hate them, you can make a case for the Eagles.
Okay. Anybody else anybody that was on that list that shouldn't have been?
Maybe the Niners.
All right. You're not high on them either, are you?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Any particular reason?
They are a run-centric team, and their best running back just went down. So,
You salty because you had Elijah Mitchell in fantasy or something?
I did have Elijah Mitchell in fantasy, but that's a big loss for them.
It is a big loss.
And if
for
you
them.
say it's not, you're wrong. So, with that, let's transition into the preview this week.
Not a lot
Weekend.
of great football.
So,
Some good football.
we have a couple games that we specifically want to talk about. Thursday night football this evening, actually, folks. Today is
Yee.
Thursday. You have the Los Angeles Chargers and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Time to get some questions answered on both of these teams, I would say. Probably more for the Chargers than for Kansas City, I would assume. But is that pass rush effective enough to disrupt an offense like Kansas City? If it is in a game like today, because Kansas City has an upgraded offensive line, which will also be put to the test tonight against that pass rush, then maybe start leaning on the Chargers over the Raiders, especially after the way that they played.
I'm going to guess this game goes the way the Rams-Bills game should have gone.
Boat
and
race.
It's a race to 50.
Yeah, I would assume so too. But without Keenan Allen, is Mike Williams the guy? Is Mike Williams not the guy? Does he show up this week? Does he not? There's a lot of I never thought that at this point in Justin Herbert's career, after the way that I saw the first 2 seasons pan out, that I would be looking at the Chargers going, well, do they have the wide receiver position figured out? That seems like a little bit of an oddity to me. And if there's a receiver out there that becomes available, and the Chargers really do think that they can make a push at it this year, I would say go get him.
Sure.
As for the Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Chargers just got a not Charger. Well, that's how that'll. Who do you got in that game?
I'll say Chiefs by 3.
Chargers by 7.
All righty, 10-point swing there. And then the other game we wanted to touch on, Arizona and the Raiders, America's game of the week.
Yes, sir.
They play Sunday at 3:25.
Is it just me, or minus Jordan Hicks, did Arizona's defense look absolutely gutted last week?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you give up 44 points, there's not much to write home about. Let's just say that.
I mean, there was somebody on this show that sat here this offseason and said that this year's Arizona Cardinals were going to be last year's Seattle Seahawks, and they were just going to be bad. I think the Cardinals are just going to be bad. The offense was not impressive, minus D-Hop, and the defense was not impressive without Jordan Hicks. Let's also keep in mind the guy that they took to kind of be the staple of that defense, the guy they thought was going to be like their Micah Parsons, who's the kid from Clemson? I've already forgot his name. Simmons or whatever?
Isaiah Simmons.
Based on the hype that was around him, you could call him a borderline bust. The guy has not been the level of impact player that they have needed him to be to elevate that defense.
Right.
And they also lost Chandler Jones, so their pass rush has been gutted as well.
I think the Cardinals are still a team that can beat anybody and they can lose to anybody.
I think they're going to lose this week.
I think they will too. The Raiders need a win coming off a week 1 loss.
Yep.
A little bit more than the Cardinals need it, I think.
Yeah, and I think with the Raiders, it's just going to be how quickly can McDaniels iron out the kinks. Derek Carr held on to the ball too much last week. Too long last week. I think everybody could say that, but how much of that was how they called the plays? Right. Were they trying to take too many deep shots? And Hunter Renfrow wasn't really targeted. He'll be a great weapon underneath in that slot, role to speed up the pass game if they need to, because they're going to have to work on their offensive line, which is evidently the weakness of their team. But like I said, Arizona doesn't have much of a pass rush to challenge that offensive line.
Right.
And if they really wanted to with Josh Jacobs, they could just beat Arizona into submission. So I've got the Raiders by 10 in this game.
I'll take Raiders, but I'll give them 4 points.
Fair enough.
We do have a little bit of time.
Yeah. How'd we do?
Well, I'm just curious if you watched any college football this week.
I did not.
So you didn't hear about the college football upsets?
I mean, I did hear that App State has an absolute unit of a team.
So Appalachian State walked into College Station and beat Texas A&M, who was 6th ranked in the nation. Washington State traveled to Wisconsin and beat them as well.
Wow, okay. Hey, that opens the door for Sky Yuma.
Marshall defeats Notre Dame at home.
No way.
Marshall got paid, I think, $1.25 million to travel and beat number 8 Notre Dame at home.
Wow.
And then the one that marks the end of Scott Frost in Nebraska.
Oh, yeah, weird.
Let me see if I can find that score really quick.
I'm pretty sure every Nebraska fan rejoiced like they had won a national championship at the dismissal of Scott Frost.
Yes, it was Georgia Southern beating Nebraska.
So he lost to the triple option.
45-42.
Ooh.
So I'm just curious, with a little bit more parity in college football this year, is there anything to look forward to as the playoff expands? And maybe, seeing some of these teams that we don't always see at the top.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I like App State. Obviously, the start that they're off to, they're playing like their hair's on fire. Is that sustainable throughout the season? Who knows? And I think honestly, the Gophers have been consistent
against terrible teams.
For sure. But what are you supposed to do to bad teams?
Do what they've been doing.
Exactly. And Mo Ibrahim looks like he's all the way back.
Yeah, he does. And like I said, I'm hoping to go to the game on Saturday against Colorado. That should be a fun one, and I'll give you guys an update from there. But
yeah.
I
not a whole lot else. I really didn't pay attention as much to college football this week as I should have, or as much as I wanted to. But to me, after week 1, where they obviously stack the deck with all of these great matchups, I always find that there's a little bit of a lull in college football until you're like, oh, look at this. It's 7 versus 3, and that usually happens like week 4, 5, 6
sure.
In the college season. So I did kind of take my break from a nauseating amount of football, since that is literally all I've done for the last 2 weeks since the kickoff
of football season.
I was gonna say, and I mean, not that I'm tired of it, but we eat the pie one bite at a time.
Alrighty, and with that, that's pretty much all that we have for you. So let us know what you thought of today's show. Let us know what you think of tonight's Thursday night matchup and what you think of the Vikings-Eagles matchup on Monday night as well. Mm-hmm. Anything else? Yeah, no, make sure that you tune in next week. Obviously, we're creeping up on UFC 280, I believe, which is going to have some really good fights on it. I believe that is the O'Malley, Peter Yan, Adesanya, Pereira, and there's one other really... Charles Oliveira versus Islam Makhachev is on that card as well, so that'll be a stacked one for UFC. We'll start breaking that down here soon. I'm sure we're actually going to get some news on the Canelo front with Triple G here from some of the whispers that I've been hearing. So I'm sure Gabe's in the back chomping at the bit to be wrong about that all over again. 3 G's, 3 losses, and then. Other than that, man, just breaking down more football and probably a formal funeral for the Minnesota Twins by next week. Alrighty. And if you want to check us on social media between our shows, you can always find us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, and YouTube. That's right. Check us out on cable, MCN6, Saturday nights at 10 p.m. We are late night because we like to cuss. You can also access that on your Roku remote anywhere in the nation? The universe. As long as you got Roku. The universe. Through MCN6. That's right. As always, like, share, and subscribe so you guys can see when we post new content. We do post new content on the daily, so you can share it with your friends there as well. I hope everybody takes the opportunity to enjoy your football weekend and get ready to party with us after the Minnesota Vikings beat the Eagles on Monday night. We will see you guys next Thursday to break all of that down. As always, take care, stay safe, have fun.
Canelo's coming off a loss, dude.
And Triple G is on steroids.
I hope so. That way it'll be a fair fight.